Hello, Winston. So,
hello, Israel.
Yeah, you're welcome to this event and this program, which is going to be looking at the infrastructure development of or what the NPP has done as far as infrastructure development is concerned. So, by way of initial thoughts, you tell us what you make of it.
Well, so Israel, you know that in February 2020, when Dr. Bawumia held his first town hall meeting, not the first, but one of his town hall meetings in the Ashanti region, one of the things the government talked about was the fact that they were fulfilling their promises. And the government, in talking about the fulfillment of their promises, talked about how they made 388 promises in their manifesto, out of which 114 of them had been delivered, an additional 180, about 180 of it were, being delivered, or like government would term it, delivering, and others were pending. So after that, there's been lots of conversations about what government has really done. Yeah. And one of the things that the mid-year budget review did was the fact that government presented a public debt of 255 billion. And you've had politicians on the other side take advantage of it and questioning the government and said, what have you done with all this money? Now, my understanding is that government would want to show what it has done. You probably would have heard, amongst neutrals and independents and even partisan people that what has the government used all the money that it has borrowed for? Yeah. What the government seeks to do today is to show what it has used all those monies that it had borrowed for by showing Ghanaians the infrastructural development. Now, mind you, Dr. Bawumia, while in a position, said you do not borrow for consumption. You borrow for capital expenditure. Indeed. So if that is the case, where are they? Okay. So we'll be coming to that conversation in a bit, but Latif Idris is standing by at the Academy of Arts and Sciences where the event is going to be happening. So I'd like to bring him in at this point. Hello, Latif. You tell us what the situation is like on the ground. I can imagine people have started gathering. The event is supposed to start at 6 p.m. So you tell us what's there right now.
Yeah, easy. So you are live here from the Academy of Arts and Science, and the stage is set. You can see that in the background, and the dignitaries have all started arriving. I have here with me Minister in charge of Agric. Doc, you are welcome to join us. You are live on Joynews, I must say.
Thank you very much.
Tell us about the significance of this particular exercise to be undertaken by the Vice President at this crucial time of electioneering.
Well, as you know, we are nearing the 4th year of our term, and as you're aware, there's been a lot of initiatives by this government, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's government, and it's about time we showcased the various aspects of it. Today, the Vice President is going to elaborate on what has been done in the area of infrastructure. There are various aspects that he's going to touch on in due course. But today is infrastructure to show what we've been able to do in areas of in education, in agriculture, in the roads, in port authorities. All those are to be, we're going to go through this to show that in the 3.5 years, this government has tackled the infrastructure bottleneck, which really can push back one's development program. That once we tackle that, we are talking about opening up the country for marketing of food and other products, industrial products. There's one district, one factory. Before these products can come onto the market, obviously there should be a linkage from the producing areas to the centers. All these are going to be covered by the Vice President this evening.
I see you are wearing the branded Planting for Food and Jobs nose mask. In your sector, the agri sector, tell us about how you also benefited from the infrastructure that government started working on since you assumed office in 2017.
In anticipation of the success of the Planting for Food and Jobs, this government committed itself to building warehouses, because when we took over, warehouses, public warehouses were only equivalent to 32,000 metric tons. 27 warehouses of 34,000 metric tons, and we needed to build more, to add to the capacity, knowing what we had in mind. So it was decided that we are going to build 80 warehouses of 1,000 metric ton capacity. So instantly we are adding 80,000 metric tons of warehousing capacity to our stock of the 34,000 that we took over, and which has been the case for the last 40 years. So that has really expanded our capacity to hold and to store and hold stocks of food in order to make sure that our food security strategy works. And lo and behold, we anticipated well, because, as you know, production of agricultural produce, production of agricultural output has gone up enormously. For instance, we never used to produce more than 2 million metric tons of maize, which is our basic food item in this country. Last year we produced over 3 million metric tons of maize. So how are we going to hold this without warehouses? Very, very important. And linked to that is the rural feeder roads and so on, to link the production centers to the areas. So we have the roads network, which this year is the year of the roads. And as you know, my colleague Honorable Amakata has done very well in terms of all the construction of roads that we are seeing around the country today.
How would you say those living in communities where farming is the mainstay, how are they benefiting from this, the declaration of year of fruits?
Oh yeah, because access to their farming communities is far more enhanced. So evacuation of their produce into the primary markets and then to the secondary markets makes it much easier. And then of course they can benefit economically, financially from the sweat that they have put into farming.
Tell me about, there's been some people trying to downplay the significance of today's events by the Vice President, that if indeed you have built these infrastructures in the various communities, the various districts, regions across the country, do you need to come on a stage to tell the people what you have built? If the people are feeling it, what is the essence of coming to trumpet it on live television?
Well, it's just like you saying that there's no need to campaign for elections. We are in a campaigning season. You know, Saturday we are launching our manifesto, which is a promise to the people of Ghana in Cape Coast. Okay, so it's the time, and now with the COVID, you don't expect to have thousands and thousands of people gathered in one place. So this is a very good way to campaign, you know, in small groups, visually, so that distancing and everything is in place in order to control the COVID, whilst we are sending our messages across to the electorate that it is worth to vote back Nana Dankwa for a second term, because our programs are such that most of what initiatives that we are taking are going to come into fruition only in the second term. So the people of Ghana should give him a chance, vote for him on the 7th of December, so he continues the good work that he has started in the first term.
Again, from the agri sector, tell me about the impact your ministry, the successes that you have chalked in your ministry. How much of that is going to play out in whether the NPP retains office or, loses come December 7th?
The impact of the effort in agriculture is felt in the rural areas, because that's where the farms are, and they are the biggest beneficiaries. The government of Nana Dankwa has been subsidizing seed and fertilizer to farmers to the tune of almost around $100 million US.
It's cut you short on that, because the former administration, they were giving it for free. You came in and you are selling it and subsidizing it. Yes. Which one would you go for, Doc?
What you are
free or subsidy?
Well, what you are going for is what you are doing, obviously, and you can see that it's much more effective. It's not only saying that you are going to give 100 metric tons of fertilizer free of charge. We are doing multiples of that. In Ghana, fertilizer subsidy never exceeded 140,000 metric tons. The last 3 years we've been doing upwards of 300,000 metric tons, reaching out to far more farmers than before. And of course, it's not only fertilizer. We are talking about improved seed. The strategy is to exchange the traditional seed of the farmer with improved seed with high yielding seed. And that is working for the people of this country. And that's why in a COVID situation like this, in many countries, there's hunger, food prices are way above what they used to be. But in Ghana, you see that in the stocks of food, even now, as we speak, as we are about to harvest the first crop of the year, we still have a lot of stocks in the system, which tells you that the impact of planting for food and jobs has been excellent.
Before I let you go, Doc, let's look at the policy of one village, one dam. The essence was that this is going to help farmers in the northern region to undertake farming even within the dry season. How significant was this policy to the farmers in the northern region during the dry season? Did it actually work to plan, or it failed?
Well, you know, a lot of these policies, you don't expect instant results, okay? So over the period, you know, in the savanna areas of the north, the rainfall is only 3-4 months in a year. So the rest of the year, 7-8 months, people are sitting down doing nothing. That's the essence of the irrigation. But the irrigation is very expensive and restricted. So building dams close to the farming areas so the farmers can have access to water in the dry season is equally important. Also to have water for their livestock and for their own use is very important. So we've gone ahead and started this program, which is an ongoing program. And that's one of the other reasons that why this government should be voted back, to continue the good works. Because 4 years is not enough. I mean, for instance, I want to make Ghana self-sufficient in rice. There's no way you can do it in 4 years. I'm saying that in the next 2-3 years, Ghana will be self-sufficient. Rice production is increasing significantly. But these are biological phenomena. You don't expect that. It's not like a factory where your input and then your output is there. You have to build up over a period of time. So all these policies, bold initiatives by the Akufo-Addo government, it takes time to really have the full impact. And that is the justification for the electorate of Ghana to consider all these initiatives and vote Nana Addo Dankwa back on the 7th of December so he can continue the good work that he's doing.
Before I let you go, I may not see you again before the December 7 poll. Are you confident President Akufo-Addo will retain power, and by what margin?
I am more than confident. You know that even
Right, so you had Latif Idris speaking with the Agric Minister, Dr. Usu Efri-Akoto. And Winston, one of the questions that was on my mind when I heard about this infrastructure, the results fair, was that now, why this? Why do we need this results fair? But clearly the Agric Minister has stated and made it clear that essentially this is all about a campaign, because there's COVID, and the president can't be all out there trying to tell people what he's done. So this platform gives him an opportunity, or gives the administration an opportunity to say what they've done. But one other thing that came up that it gives you an indication what to expect is when he was asked about what is there to show. I mean, an indication of what we're to expect, and he indicates that it's about initiatives that they expect to come to fruition in the second term. Does it mean that we're not going to have much to show?
Well, so he talks about the fact that some of the initiatives would come to fruition in the second term. But my checks indicate that what the government is going to do today is to actually show projects that, or infrastructure that were started under the John Dramani Mahama administration, which they have completed. Projects were probably funding or were in the processes or were at the conceptualization stage under the John Dramani Mahama administration, which they came in, sourced funding, and have completed. And also projects that they conceptualized, they took care of right from the conceptualization stage to the completion stage. And my understanding also is that there are lots of photographs to back them, show that this is what the government has done. But Israel, the truth is, and we've seen it happening, that all governments start projects which they are unable to complete. and then the next government comes into power and maybe completes it. Sometimes it delays. We have seen the consistent talk of forensic audits or independent audits, particularly of pricing of projects, which have resulted in many of these projects stalling and in some instances never getting completed. So governments always want to ensure that, look, let's try as much as possible. If I started a project in my first term, why don't I see it to, its completion probably in my second term? And then while I am going out, because, presidents are only entitled to 2 terms, they could start others. But then the fulfillment is that I started and completed these projects, and thus my government be giving credit for them.
Yeah. All right. So we're making you a part of this conversation. So out on Facebook, we have put up a post and we're expecting you to contribute. So the NDC and MPP, who has done better in terms of infrastructure, and you tell us why. So we're expecting you to leave your comments beneath that. Whilst, well, it looks like we're having some comments coming through already. 514 comments already in 19 shares. George Akomorgan says the issue about infrastructure must be assessed at a more comprehensive level. We need to have a discussion on value for money and quality of the said infrastructure. I think both parties have failed in that regard. Value is the same. That's interesting. But also on the phone, we have a development expert. He's going to be telling us what he makes of this results fair in the first place. Thank you very much for making time to speak with us, Dr. Donfair. So what are your initial thoughts about this results fair that the MPP administration says they're having this evening?
Thank you very much, my brother, for having me. And greetings from Savannah region. I'm far away in Savannah region. Yes, so it is very, very important. If we look at the budget, anytime the budget is read, 2 main expenditure items are often talked about. One being what is called recurrent expenditure, and the other one capital expenditure. Anytime you hear recurrent expenditure, that is the money government would put aside for us to use it today. The money that we need to use today in order to do what we have to do to get to tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then the other money that is put aside to take care of tomorrow is what is called capital expenditure. In other words, you are not wrong if you want to call it investment. And so when we talk about capital expenditure, we're talking about money that we use in road construction, money for building schools, hospitals, and what have you. So these are what capital expenditure would do. If we look back to the recent fiscal years, we saw the the capital expenditure declining while the recurrent was always going up. For example, last year, Ghana government spent 70 billion, and only about 5 billion went into capital expenditure. At the time, the budget was read somewhere in November. At that time, we had data for only 3 months. And the indication whether we had spent at that time about 5 billion on capital expenditure. Of course, after the year ended, I haven't seen the entire figure, so I'm not able to tell what really happened the whole last year. But if you look back the last few years, we hardly crossed over 6 billion. When you have spent over 70 billion and you are not spending so much on capital expenditure, it becomes a problem. Capital expenditure really is the future. Capital expenditure is the tomorrow. And so if you are an economy and everything about your expenditure is recurrent and you don't focus so much on capital expenditure, it means virtually you don't have tomorrow.
All right, but this conversation, as far as we're learning, is the government wants to tell us what that capital expenditure that they had has been put to. But in your own estimation, are you impressed with what has been done so far? Or there are those, before you actually come to that, or let me just scratch that question. People are asking, if you have done so much as far as infrastructure is concerned, do you need a results fair to showcase? Can't the people see for themselves the infrastructure that you've put in place?
Yeah, thank you very much. And that tells the story that what the government is doing might not be that adequate. If indeed government is able to cover every part of Ghana, I don't think they need to tell their story, because everybody everywhere will see what is happening. But we must admit that our budget has quite a number of constraints. I mentioned the fact that last year we spent 70 billion and 20 I mean, only 5 billion out of that went into capital expenditure. I must also say that 20 billion out of that 70 went into interest payments. When we talk about interest payments, these are the loans that past governments have taken, and you are paying. Normally, when you take a loan, it takes 5 years for it to mature, for you to start paying interest. And so most of what we paid, 20 billion last year, had to be what other governments procure, the loans we procure that you were servicing. But the same way, this government is also taking, and so future governments will also come to inherit that. And that has been where we find ourselves. Let me say, because they are not able to do everything everywhere, it is important that the little that they do, they showcase it for the entire Ghana to know what is happening. If you don't do that, and for example, this particular area, you don't have anything there, they might think that for the whole of your 3 years, you haven't done anything. You know, and so that to me might be the reason why they do that. NBC did it beautifully with the Green Book to showcase what they have done. And so if you ask me, I don't think it is too bad to do that, except that sometimes I ask myself, the money that is being spent to tell the people what we have done, couldn't we have used that money to do something more? That is another question. But whatever that it is, we are in the election year, and so definitely you would expect that people want to know what you have done. And so telling people what they have done, to me, is not too bad.
All right. Dr. Domfe, I want you to hold on for us. We're going to take a break at this point, but we intend to continue the conversation because we're going to be asking what goes into decisions that are being made as far as infrastructure is concerned, the relevance, the financing of these projects. You talk about how we take loans, or governments take loans, and most of the loans will have to go pay for previous loans that have been taken for infrastructure development. And then, so the financing of some of this infrastructure development, I'd want you to hold on for us. We'll take a break and come back and continue the conversation. This is our live coverage of the results fair being held by government. It comes up shortly, but before then we're having this conversation to put it all into perspective. We'll take a break. We'll be back in a bit. All right, so you're welcome back to our coverage, live coverage of government results fair, which is about to start at the Academy of Arts and Sciences. Before then, though, we're having a conversation to put all this into perspective. And we have on the line Dr. George Domfe. He's a development economist, and we're having a conversation with him earlier about the relevance of this fair. He explains to us as this is indeed relevant because government can be everywhere, and government can't do or provide enough development for the entire country. And so the little that it does, it wants to show to the people that it has really done something worthwhile. Now, Dr. Domfe, I want us to return to the conversation about financing of infrastructure. You indicated that a lot of the loans that we procure, the loans actually go to pay for previous loans that have been taken for infrastructure projects. And the question I'm asking, so why is it that we'll take a loan, that we're going to use it for a particular infrastructure project, which should pay for itself, and then we end up taking another loan to go pay for it?
So, my brother, thank you very much. You are very right. So in investment, you don't just do anything, but you often will look at those that will definitely be able to bring back whatever you have spent in. And so as a country, if you are going for loan for infrastructure development, you look at those that can pay the money. It's not as if as soon as when you construct the road, within 2 years, 3 years, that road will ask the government to come back for the money. It doesn't work that way. But we are talking about the uses of that particular project. And so, for example, if you put up a school building today, what are you doing? You are enhancing human capital development. And any country that has its human capital development, reaching a certain level, is a country that is developing. We talk so much about the 4 Asian targets.
All right.
The other countries, they did very well, all because they invested so much in human capital. And so let me say, up a school building, what is going to happen is that you are going to get better human resource, for which reason the productivity will have to increase. And once the productivity goes up, the indications are that your economy is going to gain so much. And so whenever such a project is going to be undertaken, we do what we call benefit cost analysis and then make projections that in the next 30 years, if we are going to spend this amount in the next 30 years, what is it that we are going to get as a country? And so if it is feasible, we have so many investment criteria that we use to do this analysis. We have payback and what to do. So if you use any of these and the result turns out to be positive, then you want to go ahead with that particular project. And in our economics, we say that project is not feasible because within a shortest possible time, it will bring in more benefit than the cost that was used to put up that particular structure. But let me quickly say that those things happen in the developed world. In this part of our world, it's political, our projects are called them political projects. So when an individual wants to put up a particular project, it's not because that project is beneficial. They don't even think of what is called cost-benefit analysis. They don't care. They tell the whole world that when we came, we were also able to do this. And that has been a dream. If indeed technocrats will come on board, decide what is best for us at what time, that is what we call value for money. But in this part of our world, it doesn't work so much that way. It's for us to do something to tell the people that, we are forced to give us the power, not for the feasibility of it. And another thing that is really dangerous is where you started your financing. And so when they have to finance, they will go all out and they don't care whatever interest rate, whatever loan that is available. In not so long ago, let me say Ghana went with Cote d'Ivoire to European bond market. I don't want to mention the area in order not to stand political. Ghana went to the same bond market with Cote d'Ivoire. Of course, the Ivorian economy was doing better than Ghanaian economy at the time. Ivorian government refused to take the euro bond at a coupon rate of 8.5%. But Ghana government took it at 11.2. What does that tell you? It means that for us, we don't care about the interest payment. I was telling you that last year, spending 70 billion went into interest payment. We don't care about it. Let us do something today for people to know that we have also done something. As to whether, the loan that we have taken, the rates are exorbitant, as whether the project itself is feasible, we don't care. And so that has been a problem. Otherwise, infrastructure, anything, infrastructure is very good and it will help us. But I'm saying that some of them, and because of our budget constraints, it is very important you always look at all the things that will render so much benefit to the citizens, and then you do that. And that is why I'm talking about cost benefit analysis, going into some of these things that they do to ensure value for money. And I can assure you that those things don't normally happen in this part of our world.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. George Domfe. I wouldn't want you to completely leave us. We're having a bit of a challenge with your line, so if you could just reposition yourself. We'll come back to you to get some more insights on all that you've had to say. You've raised the issue of cost-benefit analysis, which is very, very relevant in this conversation. The other part of the conversation we should be having is the cost of the infrastructure itself, which I think a lot of the time we tend to ignore. But that is also a relevant conversation that needs to be had. But I'm coming back into the studio to Winston Amwa, who I'm doing this with. He's the deputy head of the political desk. You heard Dr. George Domfe make the point that we don't do the cost-benefit analysis, or we don't do the data and science, or have the data and science conversation. We decide that it's more political. So the people are demanding, it is about where I'm going to get more votes.
Well, so I can understand where Dr. Domfe is coming from. And just to buttress the point he's been making, So I'm told of a situation in somewhere around 2008, 2007, where former President Kufuor went to the Upper West region. I mean, a bridge had collapsed and they wanted him to fix it immediately. He agreed, but when he sat in a vehicle with the then MP, I think then MP says, we can't do this. And he said they couldn't do this because he was also looking at the cost-benefit analysis, which he understood. The point I'm making simply is that in deciding where to build roads, in deciding where to put infrastructure, a few bit of analysis are done. And what you need to establish is how many people would use this road? What are the resources from the side of the country? So if you establish the number of people who use the road, if you establish the resources from this part of the country, then you would say, if I am able to construct that road, what I will be getting would be a lot more of these resources coming in there. I'll be enhancing movement, and once I enhance movement, I'm enhancing productivity. We always complain about traffic situation in Accra to the extent that some persons could spend 6 hours in traffic in and out of work. So that's an issue you would have to look at. But I also need to say that, you see, when Dr. Domfe talks about allocation to the budget, when it comes allocations in the budget in reference to capital expenditure, one of the things we should realize is that there are some government transfers which at the end of it all go into capital expenditure. So for instance, if you go to the district assemblies, as part of government transfers, so, I mean, not less than 5% of our total revenue would go to the district assemblies. That is not captured as capital expenditure, it's captured as government transfers. But part of that goes into infrastructural development and by extension, capital expenditure. So on the face value, on the surface of it, if you look at the budget, you would say this is the amount that has been dedicated for capital expenditure. But if you were to combine all other forms of expenditure, particularly by the local government institutions, where there are instances where they are support, I mean, things are being constructed using the District Assembly's Common Fund and also the District Development Fund, and even through the fourth analysis and all. So a lot of these things go in there that help with the capital expenditure, Israel.
Okay. All right. We'll go over to Latif Idris, who's standing by the Academy of Arts and Sciences. The event was supposed to start at 6 p.m. We're not sure it has started yet. Latif, what's happening?
I have a friend who stays at Kaswa. He says he spends 2-3 hours.
All right, so Latif is actually speaking with Railways Minister Dr. Jogate.
Yeah, Mr. Jogate.
The whole thinking process. I have to discuss what time we'll get to Accra and so on. So Rail will transform everything, and I'm happy.
About that. Finally, before you go, I did some work in the Western region in 2019. One thing I found out was that illegal miners, galamseyers, were essentially sabotaging the work of the railway industry. They were digging for gold under the rail lines. How are you tackling that? I mean, to ensure that the speed that you have started with this railway development is kept and not curtailed by these illegal miners?
It's a challenge, I must confess. It's a challenge, especially after Pristia. It's a challenge, but you know, the president keeps on saying that you were elected not to repeat problems, but to solve them. So the engineers are looking at it, and we'll see ways in which to try and resolve it. Perhaps one of the things that will do will change the alignment completely. Because me and you know that when they work in these areas, it loosens the soil. It may cost too much to repair it. So we are looking at it. There are several options. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's Railway Minister Jogate. He has been speaking about how his ministry has benefited from the infrastructure developments being undertaken by the administration, and how going forward he expects that the administration would pay more attention to the railway sector to ensure even distribution of infrastructure development across the country. Now, almost every single person invited here is seated. We have the senior minister, we have the president of the Ghana Journalists Association, we have the Minister of the Interior, we have the Defense Minister, we have the Minister for Monitoring, we have the Foreign Affairs Minister, and I'll just go quickly to the Foreign Affairs Minister to see if she would also be kind enough to give us a few words. Honorable Shirley Ayoko Bote is seated. We want to find out if she will give us 2 minutes of her time before the Vice President comes in. Our camera is...
All right, so Lateef Idris is standing by, and immediately the program starts and the Vice President makes his way onto the stage. We're going to be going over to hear from him what exactly they have to say about infrastructure development. And but I mentioned to you earlier that on Facebook, we have asked you the question, NDC and MPP, who has done better in terms of infrastructure? Tell us why. And here we have Peaceman says, it's not fair. How can you compare MPP to NDC when it comes to infrastructure development? Hassan Malik says, NDC infrastructure contribution in the Fourth Republic is unmatched. There is no part of our country NDC infrastructure work hasn't reached. And Felix Yabua Heming says, NDC with little have performed 10 times better than MPP. All right, so those are some of the comments that you have. Also on Twitter, Joynews on TV, we asked you the same question. NDC and MPP has done better in terms of infrastructure. Tell us why. And use the Election HQ in your tweets. And so we have a few. I have Kualisa says, NDC has done better compared to MPP aside the challenges faced by Doomso, which was later fixed. Looking at the hospitals, airport, the stadiums, and the roads, I'm yet to see so far a plan by the MPP which has been executed aside free SHS and COVID-19 free release. And then round 2, Noble Constant says MPP has done better because considering the limited time they have, compared that to NDC. MPP infrastructure record gives match records on schools, hospital, drones. Okay, so Noble Constant mentions drones and roads and these youth development center. Okay, great. Winston, so we're getting some comments coming in, and the people say, well, they're speaking depending on where they stand, who they believe has done better. But let's go back to February, when the administration held, well, they talked about some of the things that they were going to do, some of the things they had done. Just walk us through some of them.
Exactly. So, Israel, in February, when the Vice President had his town hall meeting in the Ashanti region, and this is from the government's own delivery tracker website. Now, they put this website out and asked all of us to go there if we had any issues or wanted to know what government has done. So I'm just going to bring to you what government says it has done.
All right.
And so when it comes to manifesto promises, the infrastructural part of the NPP's manifesto, the government says there are 45 promises.
Okay.
And out of these 45 promises, as you can see, 5 of them have been delivered.
All right.
What are they? Support local airlines and entrepreneurs to set up strong private airlines, they say delivered. Reduce the price of aviation fuel, delivered. Offer tax incentives to local real estate developers and suppliers of building materials, delivered. Empower the National Road Safety Commission to enforce and sanction road sector operators who do not comply, delivered. And automate the process of clearing goods and vehicles. 5 of these have been delivered according to the government's own website. Now, it talks of 45 promises. What it means is that 30 of them under what the government classifies as delivering.
Okay.
So
in the process of
in the process of being delivered, and 10 in February were pending. I just would run through some of the delivering, promises. And it says water for all agenda, sink 25,000 new boreholes, an additional 300 small town water supply systems, and that the government says it is delivering. Tar roads leading to district and regional hospitals. And government says it is in the process, so it is delivering. Also, there's a talk about widening major arterial roads to multi-lane carriageways, delivering, and tar roads in district capitals and extend them to major towns, also being delivered. Tar gravel roads, especially in areas of high agricultural production. Government said it is also delivering. So there are about 30 of them that government says they're delivering, some of which include promoting of research into local road construction materials to strengthen existing gravel payments. But the next thing I would want us to look at also is those that are pending. Okay, so government has talked about the ones that is delivered and the ones which haven't been delivered. So one of the things we'd want to know tonight is whether the delivering would move from delivering to delivered, and whether the pending would move from pending to delivering.
Before then, we have, let's hear what the government has to say about the water for all agenda, and then we'll come back and continue the conversation.
Of an MPP and administration under this Infrastructure for Poverty Eradication program, where every constituency will get $1 million every for rural and deprived communities. Under this program, there should be no village or community in Ghana after the first 2 years that would have a water problem or a toilet problem. There should be no village or community. Once we implement this, the first 2 years, we will make sure you will not have a water problem or a toilet problem.
All right, so the first 2 years, we would make sure that you don't have a water problem or a toilet problem, but I don't think that that has been resolved yet. Well, this indicates that delivering, as far as the water is concerned.
That is delivering, yes. Yeah. It says it's been, so that hasn't been completely delivered. So what that means is that government cannot say...
Well, for all you know, at this results fair, we're going to hear that it's been delivered.
Well, it could. Then we would fact check that.
Okay. All right, so let's go on to those that we anticipate to move from pending to delivering.
Okay, so let's look at those that are pending. It talks about reviewing baggage handling arrangements for domestic airlines, pass legislation for at least 20% of road contracts awarded to foreign contractors to be subcontracted to local contractors, increase the number of ferries on the Volta River in collaboration with the private sector, and in collaboration with the private sector, develop an inland port at Buipe, implement policy requiring new PPP affordable housing units to install solar panels and water harvesting technologies. That is still pending according to the government own website, and establish service land banks for PPP affordable housing units, and develop an integral light rail transit for our major cities. So this is one of the things that were talked about, and they're giving a deadline of August 2020, where in August we'd see what government is going to be saying about that, and also construct laybys and dedicated traffic lanes for high occupancy buses. It's still not been done, and build new entry points in major cities like Accra, Takoradi, Kumasi, and Tamale, which has also not been done. It is pending, according to the government's own website.
Okay. All right, we're going to take a break right now and get back to you. We're going to continue this conversation. Do stay tuned, and we'll be back in a bit.